1990's missing Avery family was never found until a dusty Polaroid camera fired by itself 20 years later, printing a photo with one more face than history remembers. The flash popped in total darkness, no batteries, no bulb, and in that same instant the glossy square revealed the family's eyes reflecting GPS coordinates, marking the exact forest trail where they first vanished. The billboard on Main Street didn't tell you that part. It simply teased an art show called Found Footage of a Family That Disappeared. But inside Great Lakes Regional Museum, curator Lena Brooks couldn't ignore how the prototype one-step camera, perched in its glass case, seemed to breathe. Its roller motor clicked softly whenever moonlight slithered across the lens, as though the shutter still itched to blink after 3 decades of silence. The display had come from an estate lawyer, clearing boxes out of a condemned farmhouse. He assumed the Polaroids were mildew-stained wedding snaps and left them in a shoebox. Everything changed last month. 1:07 a.m. sharp, when Lena, alone, cataloging, heard the unmistakable whir of auto-eject behind her and watched a fresh print drop onto the velvet cradle. In the blood-red glow of the darkroom lamp, she saw 5 blurred silhouettes develop. Parents, David and Ellen Avery. Teenage twins, Mark and Melissa. Little Sophie. Faces she recognized from grainy missing person flyers fading on diner notice boards. One detail froze her pulse. In the 1990 police photo, Sophie's head was tilted away. But here the girl stared straight at the viewer, pupils glinting numbers that resolved into latitude, longitude. 45 degrees 13 minutes 17.9 inches north, 81 degrees 40 minutes 19.4 inches west, a ridge just outside White Pine State Park. Security footage confirmed the shutter fired exactly 1:07 a.m. Lens cap still on, film counter unmoved. The incident might have been chalked up to mechanical twitch if county archivist Ezra Quinn hadn't compared that fresh print to evidence negatives. Pose, clothing. Even a pulled thread on Ellen's cardigan matched stitch for stitch, yet no one looked a day older. 2 nights later, under a hunter's moon, the camera self-fired again. This time, the print showed only Sophie's outstretched hand, palms smeared with blurred digits, coordinates inverted and mirrored, like a child learning cursive in reverse. Word oozed into Reddit's paranormal sub within hours. Amateur sleuths argued quantum imaging, time loops, elaborate hoax. That chatter lured Daniel Cole, ex-investigative photojournalist turned salvage shooter, back into a life he'd sworn off after a Chernobyl field job singed his fingertips yellow with silver halide burns. The stories about self-firing cameras were too familiar. He arrived in town with a trunk of lead-lined film cases and a Geiger badge clipped inside his collar. Cole met Lena after closing. Under the museum's halogens, the second print's coordinates stitched into Sophie's palm made his scalp crawl. He'd seen a similar mirrored cipher etched on a shutter plate recovered from reactor debris years earlier. "It's not broadcasting," he whispered, turning the Polaroid over like a holy wafer. "It's drafting its witness list." They agreed on one impossible plan: follow Sophie's coordinates before the camera spat out a third summons. At dawn, Ezra called, voice shredded by sleep and static. A third print had just ejected. 1:07 a.m. sharp, this time showing the clearing itself, empty, save for a blurry 7th figure half hidden behind a birch. That was all Cole needed. He popped fresh Polaroid 600 packs into a cooler. "Film stocks behave better cold," he said, slid a magnesium flash flare into his parka, and pointed a rental jeep north toward the park gate, while Lena wrapped the 2 existing prints in acid-free sleeves, heart hammering like a timer she couldn't read. 20 miles of ice-crusted back road waited, and somewhere at the end, a camera with no batteries might be gearing up for its 4th photograph, one that could absorb the last people still willing to chase it. Daniel Cole's rental jeep lurched onto the logging road that bled out of White Pine State Park like a crack in old porcelain, its tires clawing snow-packed ruts still glazed from last night's freeze. Curator Lena Brooks rode shotgun, clutching the Polaroid like a saint's relic, gloved fingers trembling each time moonlit pine shadows blinked across the windshield and tricked her brain into seeing the Avery family's silhouettes standing between the trees. 20 minutes ago, Ezra Quinn had phoned from the museum, voice all stammer and static. A third self-fired print dropped at 1:07 a.m., exactly 1 day after the second, and this one showed only the forest itself, but with a blurry 7th figure lurking in the background, face smeared by motion or something. GPS digits in Sophie's pupils mapped to 45 degree 13 minutes 17.9 north, 81 degree 40 minute 19.4 west, a ridgeline that even seasoned rangers avoided because compasses there spun like carnival rides. Lena punched the coordinates into Cole's dash tablet. A pulsing red dot hovered just 0.8 miles ahead. Cole killed the headlights to let their eyes dilate. The Jeep idled in a hush so profound, Lena heard the creak of ice crystals settling in door seals. She remembered museum security playback. Shutter fires, prints eject, but the camera body never moves. It's choosing its own witness list, Cole had muttered, and we're next on the roll. He popped the glove box, revealing a metallic cylinder, military-issue flash powder for forensic luminance, he claimed, but the label read magnesium T4 emergency flare. Just in case the dark gets greedy, he winked. They hiked the last stretch on foot. Every crunch of snow sounded swallowed, as if air density thinned with each step. Up ahead, a windbreak of black spruce parted to reveal an overgrown clearing. No trail markers, yet the GPS arrow strobed arrived. In the center stood a frost-silver tripod, the antique kind surveyors retired decades earlier. At its apex, a familiar ivory-white camera, wood screws driven straight into bakelite to keep it upright, lens aimed at a toppled birch that formed a makeshift bench. A smell like spent flashbulb powder drifted on windless air. Lena's breath fogged the lens. The camera's red, ready diode, long dead in museum tests, glowed faint cherry. Cole pulled a fresh 600 film pack from his parka, the foil packet crinkling like brittle leaves. He slid it in, but the camera snapped the shot before his hand cleared the housing. No button press, no motor whir. The print ejected, slow as molasses, edges smoking in the frigid air. As emulsion coalesced, an image resolved, the very clearing they stood in, but bathed in sepia daylight. Avery family gathered on the fallen birch. Sophie pointed not at the lens, but directly behind Cole. He turned, cold crawling his spine, to see fresh footprints sinking into virgin snow, footsteps stopping 5 feet away, yet nobody was there. Cole's breath condensed in pale ribbons as he swung his flashlight through the pines, beams snapping between trunks glazed with moonlit hoarfrost. But the fresh footprints halting 5 feet from his boots never cast a shadow of their maker. He knelt, gloved fingers hovering a hair above the impressions, toes pointed inward, barefoot, size too small for any adult. Sophie's size. Snow around each print shimmered like the emulsion chemistry he'd watched slither across the latest Polaroid. Heat residue, or something colder than the snow itself, warping light. Lena snapped a reference photo. The shutter click echoed back an octave lower, like the forest rehearsed repetition. Cole's Geiger badge stayed silent, but his analog EM microphone, a vestige from Soviet ghost station work, flared with background hiss that rose to a rattling heartbeat every time the flashlight beam crossed the tripod-mounted camera. He lifted the lens cover. Frost etched concentric rings around the glass, but instead of their own reflections, he saw a sunlit tableau. The Avery family frozen mid-laugh, bright summer clothes fluttering in a breeze that wasn't there. When he blinked, the vision vanished, replaced by empty glass and his own wide eyes. Lena gasped. Her cell phone, no service bars since they left asphalt, vibrated and began auto-playing a voicemail from an unknown number. A child's voice crackled. Syllables reversed like tape unwound wrong direction. Cole toggled the recorder mode on his EM mic, fed the audio in, and real-time reversed the waveform. Daddy, photo flash burned. Come find us before film runs out. They traded a grim look. Sophie's voice archived forever at 8 years old, pleading through a dead carrier. Cole circled the clearing perimeter. Compass spun, north sliding under the needle like soap in water. He hammered a magnesium stake into the snow, lighting a pale blue reaction that revealed thin wires strung between birch trunks. Tripwire grid, but not metal. Decades-old Polaroid film leader. Brittle, yet intact, stapled in geometric arcs. Each strip bore date stamps. February 1st, 1990. February 2nd, 1991. Ticking forward exactly 1 year per loop, ending on the strip nearest Lena's boot. February 1st, 2010. And an unexposed length trailing toward the tripod. Blank as tomorrow. From deeper forest came a wet shutter snap, followed by a flash that cast no light. Cole felt photons pass through him like a chill. A fourth print slid from the tripod camera, but this time the photo stopped halfway, chemicals freezing mid-ejection. Cole yanked it free, stowing it between thermal packs to finish developing. As he sealed the pouch, Lena's breath cut short. On the fallen birch where the Averys posed in earlier images, a single Polaroid lay face down in luminous frost. She flipped it. The clearing shone at dawn hours later. Sophie, now standing alone, index finger pressed to lips, and behind her, the museum loading dock, door ajar, red exit sign glaring. Cole's spine prickled. The camera was mapping a loop, each picture previewing the next timestamp, herding them toward an inevitable frame. Lena whispered, "It wants us back at the museum before 1:07. Cole checked his watch. 12:19 a.m. 48 minutes to sprint a 9-mile forest road or become part of the camera's 5th photograph. He stuffed the half-developed print into his vest, scooped tripod and all, and the forest, as if angered, exhaled a gust that toppled the birch and erased every footprint, except Sophie's original trail, which glowed faintly, pulsing like a film counter, hungry for the next shot. Cole's breath condensed in pale ribbons as he swung his flashlight through the pines, beams snapping between trunks glazed with moonlit hoarfrost. But the fresh footprints halting 5 feet from his boots never cast a shadow of their maker. He knelt, gloved fingers hovering a hair above the impressions, toes pointed inward, barefoot, size too small for any adult. Sophie's size. Snow around each print shimmered like the emulsion chemistry he'd watched slither across the latest Polaroid. Heat residue, or something colder than the snow itself, warping light. Lena snapped a reference photo. The shutter click echoed back an octave lower, like the forest rehearsed repetition. Cole's Geiger badge stayed silent, but his analog EM microphone, a vestige from Soviet ghost station work, flared with background hiss that rose to a rattling heartbeat every time the flashlight beam crossed the tripod-mounted camera. He lifted the lens cover. Frost etched concentric rings around the glass, but instead of their own reflections, he saw a sunlit tableau, the Avery family frozen mid-laugh, bright summer clothes fluttering in a breeze that wasn't there. When he blinked, the vision vanished, replaced by empty glass and his own wide eyes. Lena gasped. Her cell phone, no service bar since they left asphalt, vibrated and began auto-playing a voicemail from an unknown number. A child's voice crackled, syllables reversed like tape unwound wrong direction. Cole toggled the recorder mode on his EM mic, fed the audio in, and real-time reversed the waveform. "Daddy, photo flash burned. Come find us before film runs out." They traded a grim look. Sophie's voice, archived forever at 8 years old, pleading through a dead carrier. Cole circled the clearing perimeter. Compass spun, north sliding under the needle like soap and water. He hammered a magnesium stake into the snow, lighting a pale blue reaction that revealed thin wires strung between birch trunks. Tripwire grid, but not metal. Decades-old Polaroid film leader, brittle yet intact, stapled in geometric arcs. Each strip bore date stamps: February 1st, 1990, February 2nd, 1991, ticking forward exactly 1 year per loop, ending on the strip nearest Lena's boot, February 1st, 2010, and an unexposed length trailing toward the tripod, blank as tomorrow. From deeper forest came a wet shutter snap, followed by a flash that cast no light. Cole felt photons pass through him like a chill. A 4th print slid from the tripod camera, but this time the photo stopped halfway, chemicals freezing mid-ejection. Cole yanked it free, stowing it between thermal packs to finish developing. As he sealed the pouch, Lena's breath cut short. On the fallen birch where the Averys posed in earlier images, a single Polaroid lay face down in luminous frost. She flipped it. The clearing shone at dawn, hours later. Sophie now standing alone, index finger pressed to lips, and behind her, the museum loading dock, door ajar, red exit sign glaring. Cole's spine prickled. The camera was mapping a loop, each picture previewing the next timestamp, herding them toward an inevitable frame. Lena whispered, "It wants us back at the museum before 1:07. Cole checked his watch. 12:19 a.m., 48 minutes to sprint a 9-mile forest road or become part of the camera's 5th photograph. He stuffed the half-developed print into his vest, scooped tripod and all, and the forest, as if angered, exhaled a gust that toppled the birch and erased every footprint, except Sophie's original trail, which glowed faintly, pulsing like a film counter, hungry for the next shot. Cole and Lena barreled downhill, the tripod-mounted Polaroid lashed to Cole's shoulder like a captured animal still trying to blink. Every 40 paces, the shutter would twitch, a dry cough of gears warning them the next involuntary shot lurked. Snow melt refroze into glassy tongues across the rutted road, and the Jeep's tires screamed as Cole wrenched the wheel. Fishtailing between black spruces blurred into charcoal fence posts. Dashboard clock read 12:38 a.m. 29 minutes until 1:07. Lena spread the half-developed print beneath the heater vent. Color seeped through like bruises rising on skin. The image resolved into the museum loading dock exactly as Sophie's new pose foretold, except a 6th figure now loomed in doorway shadow. Outline unmistakably Cole's, one arm raised, camera aimed back at itself. "The photo is snapping us before we arrive," Lena whispered, voice thin as the ice crust cracking under tires. Cole floored the accelerator, speedometer nudging 60 on what was barely a goat track. Each pothole punched the camera strap against his ribs, and with every impact, the lens flared a microflash that left violet sunspots in Lena's vision. A quarter-mile from asphalt, the radio, dead for hours, sighed to life with the Avery twins' Last Christmas Carol. Warped to half speed, sleigh bells tracking every rotation of the Jeep's drive shaft. Compass app spun again, but this time the needle froze, pointing backward, as if true north now chased them from behind. Cole killed the headlights, hoping to starve the phenomenon of electronics. Darkness swallowed the road, save for moonlight glinting off the iced ruts and off something else. Strips of Polaroid leader film strung across the track like caution tape. Feb 1st, stamps repeating in an endless mantra. No way around. He slammed the brakes. Jeep slid sideways, missed a trunk by inches, engine coughing but alive. Lena jumped out, knife in mittened hand, sawing film strips that resisted steel as though they were tensioned wire. Each cut released a puff of acrid chemical vapor, smelling of fixer and raw emulsion. She cleared a gap, but the last strand snapped its staple against the hood, and the camera on Cole's shoulder fired. No film pack loaded, yet a phantom whir and cold flash pulsed through the Jeep interior, draining the dome light to a corpse blue. Cole jammed the gear shift, peeled out, film scraps whipping the windshield like ticker tape, clock ticking to 12:49. On the highway, shoulder cell service returned, bars flickering. Ezra's number rang, but auto-answered with static and Sophie's reversed plea. Outruns, film before us find. Lena choked down a sob, fingers numb. Museum gates appeared, padlock dangling open. Generator floodlights burned, though nobody scheduled night work. As they rolled inside, the loading dock door, the very door in the photo, stood ajar. Red exit sign exactly framed. Cole lifted the tripod camera. Its once dead ready LED now glowed surgical red, sinking to his heartbeat. On the dock, 2 fresh Polaroids fluttered against the threshold, chemical dampness gleaming. One showed Cole stepping out of the Jeep at this very moment. The other remained blank, emulsion swirling, a negative space awaiting Lena. Cole exhaled frost, feeling reality tighten like film in a drying rack. He realized the only way to stop the camera's predestination loop might be to let it finish the roll. But once both prints exposed, would they find themselves inside the next frame? Smiles painted forever on glossy stock that never ages? He handed Lena the flare, whispered, "If I cross that door frame, burn the tripod," and stepped into the rectangle of red exit light, while the camera's shutter teeth began to whine, counting down to a picture neither time nor moonlight could edit away. Cole's boot met the steel threshold and time hiccuped. One breath became 2, fluorescent tubes overhead strobed to black, then seared white again, and the museum's concrete corridor elongated, perspective lines bending as if the building inhaled. Behind him, Lena lit the magnesium flare. A blossom of cold white sparks geysered, spraying ultraviolet glare across the tripod camera. It shrieked, mechanical yet unmistakably pained, lens iris twitching in seizure. The blank Polaroid still clutched between Lena's gloved fingers rippled, emulsion bulging like a heartbeat. She aimed the flare's plume at the photograph. Molten droplets peppered the glossy surface, but instead of blistering, the image began developing at hyperspeed, revealing her own silhouette framed in the loading dock, face half turned toward burning light, pupils ghost white. With every pop of magnesium, her print self grew clearer, trapping her mid-motion. Inside, Cole advanced down the exhibition hallway, LEDs flickering in synchronous pairs like a runway guiding aircraft. Displays he'd seen hours earlier under pastel lighting, Civil War rifles, mercury barometers, now dripped condensation, as if submerged. At the Lost Families of the Midwest diorama, every photograph hovered inside its frame, loosened from backing by invisible pins, gently spinning to face the corridor. Each portrait eye tracked him. He reached the Polaroid exhibit. The glass case stood ajar, camera mount empty, felt backing scorched with perfect tripod feet. On the pedestal lay the 4th print they'd rescued, now fully developed. Sophie's face looked off-axis, smiling not at him but somewhere over his shoulder. He turned. A life-size cardboard cutout of Sophie, a promotional standee created for the exhibition, had been dragged into the hall, right palm up as if offering something small. In the cardboard palm rested another undeveloped Polaroid, film packet still wet. Cole's pulse hammered. The standee wasn't here at closing. He approached, fingertips tingling with ozone. The undeveloped print oozed faint heat despite frigid museum air. He peeled it free. Backside bore a handwritten date, 1 February 2020, 1 decade after the camera's last self-shot. The front remained blank until he breathed on it. A pale image ghosted forward. Lena, flare spent, kneeling outside next to the Jeep, eyes shut as if blindfolded by darkness, camera tripod gone. Cole's panic spiked. Outside, she was alone with an exposed flare and hostile film leader strips. He pocketed the developing shot, ignoring the standee now tilting toward him as though pulled by invisible line. Back at the loading dock, magnesium flare had died, leaving Lena in sulfur stink and sizzling embers. The blank photo in her hand had finished its betrayal. She was in the frame, flare frozen mid-burst, eyes hollow. She dropped it like a spider, realizing she'd traded place with her image, her reflection now absent from Jeep's frosted window. The tripod camera's LED cut off, flickered, then went steady green. Film counter flashing 0/10 to 1/10. It had captured its first live subject of the new roll. She staggered backward, but the film leader strips rose like puppet strings, wrapping her wrists in chemical tape. Inside, Cole burst through the dock door, tripod camera snagged, cable first to his belt. Lens pointed at him. LED turned red, shutter half-cocked. Between Lena and freedom lay a single snap. Either it would fire and trap him beside her inside glossy eternity, or he could jam the flare's dying core into its aperture and burn the cycle to ash. The magnesium sizzled at his fingertips. Shutter gears clicked. Cole jammed the flare stub into the Polaroid's yawning iris a millisecond before the shutter snapped. Magnesium hissed against plastic, coughing neon sparks that ricocheted inside the lens barrel. The camera shrieked. Metal on metal screech, and smoke billowed through the bellows, carrying a tang of molten film chemistry. Bright vermilion leaked across the viewfinder like fresh blood under a microscope. The LED pulsed red-green, indecisive, then flatlined. At Lena's feet, the film leader ribbons uncoiled, dropping like dead garter snakes. She staggered free, cheeks streaked with frozen tears, but the flare core fizzled out, leaving only acrid smoke and a half-melted shutter plate. Cole yanked the camera's back door. Inside, the 10-shot pack sat unexposed, except the top sheet had already darkened to gray, edges curling like burning paper. He ripped the cartridge free and hurled it into a galvanized trash drum. With no film left, the camera fell silent, but the museum around them exhaled a low groan. Every portrait that had floated in its frame now thunked back against glass in perfect unison, like shutters slamming at midnight. Lena clutched her wrist, skin blistered where leader film had cinched tight, and whispered, "Did we stop it, or just blind it?" Cole pointed at the cardboard Sophie cutout still propped in the hallway. Under emergency lights, its colors had leached to ash, but the palm where the last Polaroid had rested now bore a black scorch ring, smoldering around brittle cardboard fibers as though the photo had detonated with silent heat. "It's starving," Cole said, voice ragged. "Needs new emulsion, new souls." He lifted the half-developed snapshot of Lena from his pocket. The image hadn't finished, her face blurred, outline smeared sideways like a tape stretch. Hungry, unfinished. He shuddered at the thought. The picture was still trying to steal her photon by photon. They needed to quarantine every print before chemical ghosts could finish their harvest. Lena sprinted to the exhibition desk, grabbed a box of archival mylar sleeves and a bottle of sulfuric fixer, the industrial strength variety used for glass plate negatives. Cole fetched a steel film safe from storage, its interior lined with lead panels. One by one, they slid the haunted Polaroids into fixer baths. Images hissed and bubbled, dyes sloughing away until only blank plastic remained. As each print cleared, overhead lights brightened a notch, air pressure equalized, and Cole's watch resumed ticking after 10 minutes of inert silence he hadn't noticed. At 1:05 a.m., 2 minutes before the cursed shutter's usual schedule, Cole hefted the ruined camera, still oozing molten plastic, and carried it outside. Snow began again, gentle as gathered breath. He dug a shallow grave beside the loading ramp, burying the carcass lens down, then doused it with the last drops of fixer. Steam rose, carrying the faint smell of developer fluid and lavender, the Avery family's perfume, according to old police reports. The wind carried a single snap, like a shutter closing miles away, then nothing. His phone remained dark. No reversed child's plea. No coordinates dancing in alien pupils. Inside, Lena sealed the steel safe. "If any image tries to finish itself," she whispered, voice hoarse, "it's locked in 10 millimeters of lead." Cole could only nod, exhaustion welding his jaw. As they limped toward the Jeep, dawn's first blue poured down Main Street. For a breathless heartbeat, they expected a flash behind them, one last self-fired frame to freeze their retreat. Instead, the world stayed silent, except for a single crow cawing from the museum's marquee, taking flight toward the forest where the footprints had already filled with fresh snow, erased like negatives soaked too long in fixer. 2 weeks later, the museum lot held more satellite vans than pickup trucks. Reporters clamored for a statement while hazmat technicians in Tyvek suits carried the lead film safe into an unmarked DHS trailer. No one mentioned Polaroids, only chemical contamination, but Cole could see the fear in officials' eyes each time the container thumped from internal gas release. Residual chemistry still boiling off ghost images that would never finish. Lena stood on the steps, bandaged wrist tucked into her coat sleeve, and announced the exhibition would be dismantled. History belongs in light, not in dark rooms that build their own stories. Behind her, the cardboard Sophie cutout lay flat in a burn bin, edges curling to ash. Yet the scorch-ringed palm refused to char, as if cardboard fibers remembered silver halide once promised. Cole packed his Jeep at sundown, tripod dense, still bruising his shoulder, when a courier in brown uniform approached with a padded envelope, no return address. Inside, a single blank Polaroid, still sealed, and a yellow post-it scrawled, "Film expires when stories do." No coordinates, no faces, just the faintest scent of fixer. He slid the print into Lena's mylar sleeve, then into his glove box, unsure whether to keep it as insurance or salt. As he drove south, moonlit highway markers flashed 1:07 a.m., and his radio, thought dead, exhaled a child's breathy giggle before collapsing into static. He clicked it off, humming an out-of-tune carol to drown silence that felt too thick. If you've ever found an old camera at a yard sale, ask yourself, did the shutter click because you pressed it, or because something pressed back? Smash like if you'd dare load fresh film anyway. Drop a comment, shoot if you'd take the picture. Burn if you'd toss it straight into the fire. I'll pin the bravest response in tomorrow's upload. And don't forget to subscribe. Every night at 1:07 we dive into another forgotten artifact that still remembers how to breathe. Sleep tight. And if a Polaroid prints itself on your nightstand, count the faces twice. 2 months later, a government lab technician named Amara Singh slid the Avery lead box onto a vibration table inside DOE's Nevada desert facility. Sensors ringed the container like shark teeth, calibrated to detect gamma spikes, volatile VOCs, anything anomalous. Yet the instruments twitched only when the technician exhaled. The Polaroids inside, presumed chemically inert, pulsed nothing. At 1:07 local time, the lab clock synced by GPS to the second. Power flickered. Emergency LEDs lit the procedural bay in garish coral. Singh froze. The vibration table's printout needle crawled upward, tracking sub-audio tremors. She cracked the box seal. Dry ice fog wisped out. The topmost Polaroid, one Cole had bleached blank, felt warm through nitrile gloves. She flipped it. Milky haze blossomed into a fresh image of herself bending over the container. Timestamp burned reddish in the border. 1:07. Her colleagues dismissed it as latent residue, but 3 days later, DOE quietly transferred the safe to an abandoned salt mine, burying it 300 meters beneath desert crust. Files stamped confidential left one margin note scribbled in red. Images are self-referential. Burn after reading. Back in Michigan, Lena Brooks reopened the deserted exhibit hall to pack surviving artifacts. She hummed absent-mindedly until her phone buzzed. Unknown caller, no number. Auto voicemail played a child's giggle followed by static. Then Sophie's reverse sentence fragment Jacobson could never translate. Ni fått li nu roy tuosiats. Nearby on a rolling cart sat the cardboard Sophie hand, scorch ring still unburned. Lena, irrationally curious, peeled away the charred layer. Hidden beneath, a second palm image remained intact, thumbnail pointing to an embossed microtext. Return, negative. She phoned Cole, driving west on US 90, empty desert horizon ahead. Leopard patch interference bled through the call until both realized they were passing 45 degrees longitude markers. That same axis Sophie's eyes once encoded. Cole's glovebox photo began to develop unbidden despite total darkness. Road vibrations revealed faint ghost strokes, a highway mile marker, and a date 2 weeks ahead. In that moment, a highway patrolman flashed lights behind Cole. Pulled over, he explained they'd received radio chatter, an out-of-band distress call, matching Cole's rental plate. But the channel wasn't federal police. It was the museum's now removed display frequency, dead since February. Cole surrendered license, pulse thudding while the officer stepped to the cruiser. Reflected in rear view, Cole saw the patrolman's silhouette freeze, flashlight beam aimed into the glove box, gaze transfixed by the half-developed photo. The policeman lifted it, and in cruiser headlights, Cole glimpsed the final image, the patrolman himself standing beside Cole's Jeep, staring at a photograph, a recursive paradox, chewing its own tail. The cop staggered back, eyes shining with film liquid. He muttered, "Why am I here twice?" before dropping the print. Cole seized the photo. Emulsion streaked across his fingers, staining them silver. Back in the Upper Peninsula, Lena discovered the cardboard Sophie hand now showed mirror script unfamiliar to English. She snapped a scan and flipped horizontally. Film expires when stories do. Keep telling. Pulse pounding, she realized the camera's hunger had mutated, no longer for coordinates, but for narrative. The more people recounted the Avery myth, the longer the film stayed fresh. If no one spoke of it, the chemistry would die. The story itself had become developer fluid. She dialed Cole again. Static. Then Sophie's voice in real time. Finish the negative, or we stay. Cole shoved the silver-streaked Polaroid into an evidence bag, shook chromium dust off his fingertips, and drove until the cruiser's taillights dimmed behind desert scrub. His phone rang. Lena again, but instead of her voice, the line opened with the hiss of film sliding through rollers. Finish the negative, or we stay. Sophie's 8-year timbre repeated, this time overlaid by a new frequency map humming beneath her words. The identical spectrogram DOJ techs had logged the night DOE's lab lost power. Cole's tires fishtailed on gravel as he realized the recursion. Every time someone handled a print, the story branched, spawning a fresh negative that demanded completion. The myth was metastasizing, printing witnesses into itself in infinite copies. He U-turned, engine roaring toward the only fire hot enough to cauterize legend, the abandoned copper smelter outside Bisbee, brick stack still licensed for controlled incineration tests. Meanwhile, Lena emailed Cole a high-res scan of the cardboard Sophie hand. When he downloaded, metadata populated itself. Date taken, 01/02/1990, 01/007, and GPS, 45 degrees, 13 minutes, 17.9 second, and the Rhine, the original vanish point. The file size swelled in real time, bytes multiplying like cells until the thumbnail morphed into a blinking red icon labeled Record Ready. Terrified, Lena unplugged her router. The icon froze. Inert. She glanced at the empty display pedestal. Without an internet tether to feed on, the myth's new branch stalled. Cole skidded past the smelter gates at dusk. Inside the blast furnace hall, he counted 17 crushed Polaroid cartridges in the shadows. DOE cleanup had tried disposal before him. The myth had grown stronger. He donned a respirator, dumped his glovebox photo and the patrolman's recursive print onto a conveyor feeding the clinker kiln. He hesitated. Finish the negative, or we stay. The phrase implied burning might not erase, but rather commit the print as a final frame. Permanent record in ash. Did finish mean incinerate or archive? He called Lena via satellite patch. She suggested a third path. Expose the negatives publicly. Flood the internet with high-res scans. Over-replicate until chemistry of myth diluted into meme noise. Urban legends die when everyone owns them. Cole swallowed fear, opened the evidence bag, photographed each haunted print under the smelter's xenon work light, airdropped the images to Lena. She queued them on Den Story's upload panel titled Broken Polaroids. Download at your own risk. 30 seconds before publish, every thumbnail grayed out, replaced by text. Film expires when stories do. Then YouTube's back end crashed for her account only. Kiln alarms wailed. Temperature spikes. Cole lunged for the emergency vent lever. Molten slag roared, devouring conveyor and prints alike. He watched the Polaroids curl, colors bleeding cyan magenta, then burst into green flame, a shade impossible in standard dye layers, as if the story's final chemistry screamed on exit. His radiation badge chirped once, then went silent. Across the continent, Lena's upload queue refreshed. Thumbnails restored, but images now pure white, EXIF stripped, as if the server held placeholders where data self-immolated. In the silence that followed, her phone buzzed, but caller ID showed only 107. She answered to white noise, then a child's relieved sigh. The line went dead. Cole texted, "Did it answer you or thank you?" She replied, "Maybe both." Smelter stack belched jade smoke that night, staining clouds in eerie pastel. No new Polaroids surfaced. Yet on Den Stories, comments poured beneath blank thumbnails. Users swore they saw faint silhouettes when they tilted screens. The myth was ash, but after images lingered, like flash spots on retinas. Proof stories never burn away. They merely wait for another shutter to blink. Cole stayed in Bisbee 48 hours to file an incident affidavit for DHS, but the agents who arrived wore no official insignia, spoke in clipped syllables, and asked more about narrative containment vectors than chemical disposal. They confiscated the slag-hardened remains of the prints, yet Geiger sweeps read baseline. The myth had shed its atomic bite. On his motel TV, the the local news looped a pale jade plume still drifting from the smelter stack. Reporters speculating copper oxide flare-offs, never mentioning emerald flames or cameras that shot by themselves. At 1:07 a.m., the screen went black for exactly 3 seconds. Station fault, they claimed, before resuming with audio muted. Cole felt the old chill. Stories cut their own commercial breaks. He powered off, packed, and left under a dawn sky washed of color, as though the desert had bleach-bathed its horizon, the way fixers strip-cleared a Polaroid. Back in Michigan, Lena reopened Den Story's dashboard. The blank thumbnails still registered thousands of views. Retention graphs flatlined. People watched nothing for minutes, mesmerized. Comment threads grew a cult. Users claimed dragging brightness plus 100 or taking screenshots at 1:07 revealed after-images, green silhouettes of a girl and a camera. YouTube's hashtag failed to flag any frames. Lena realized the myth had metastasized digitally, embedding echo data below compression noise. She posted a community poll, "Do you see Sophie?" and 72% answered yes. The more eyeballs searched, the more defined the phantom became. Film expires when stories do, but the internet never ends. Cole rolled into the museum parking lot 3 days later. Snowmelt dripped from eaves, and the Polaroid exhibit space stood stripped to blank walls. Yet on the concrete floor lay a single, undeveloped instant film sheet, crisp white. No camera near, no visitors logged. He sealed it in Mylar, slipped into Lena's office. On her monitor, a paused frame from one viewer's screenshot showed Sophie half-present, pixels dithering into existence where photo grain should be. Cole laid the fresh sheet on a light box. Nothing. But when Lena recited Sophie's voicemail plea aloud, the white square warmed, faint outline surfacing. 2 figures, backlit in a doorway, himself and Lena, each holding a camera pointed at the other, a Mobius of observation. The timestamp field blank, awaiting digits. He exhaled. "It's not done. It moved media, that's all." Lena nodded, eyes glistening. The myth had hopped substrate from chemistry to codec, from silver halide to algorithmic hash. Destroying cameras mattered less than managing a living meme. They set a plan. Release the sheet's high-res scan under Creative Commons. Flood cyberspace until copies diluted any single haunted original, turning shock value into background noise. "Mass-produce the ghost," she said. "Starve it with infinite reflections." Cole grinned wearily. "We'll make the legend as mundane as banner ads." He checked his watch. 1:06:53. They braced for the timecode omen, but when 1:07 ticked over, nothing flickered. No calls, no prints, only the hum of a server farm caching millions of brand new duplicates. Myth flattened under its own virality. And somewhere in the digital murmur, a child's giggle diffused into static so wide, it sounded like silence. Proof that some images can survive by being seen too much to haunt anyone alone. Within 48 hours, the Creative Commons dump propagated to Reddit. Imager mirrors, torrent bundles labeled Sophie.Palong.mp4. Reactions split into camps. Skeptics saw washed-out silhouettes. Believers insisted metadata shifted when you blinked. A TikTok filter surfaced, overlaying Sophie's eyes on any selfie. Downloads hit 1 million by day 3. Each copy diluted pixels a bit more, like dye diffusing in an ocean. Google's reverse image AI began classifying the sheet as low confidence, white rectangle, the algorithmic equivalent of a shrug. Lena tracked back-end analytics. Retention curves cratered, novelty dead. The myth was oxygen-starved by overexposure. Yet anomalies flared in quiet corners. A school server in Brazil crashed when students printed the sheet on thermal paper. The spooled receipt emerged jet black except for GPS digits 45, 13 minutes, 17.9 inch north. In Tokyo, a vending machine screen glitched, swapping ad loops for Sophie's mirrored plea until factory reset. Cole nicknamed these flare-ups after-images, like retinal ghosts that persist even after staring at the sun. He theorized tiny pockets of bandwidth where the meme recollated enough entropy to echo the original. Their solution? Continuous noise. Using idle museum servers, they seeded hourly variants. Color shifted, compressed, watermarked. Each new dilution bred fractals of meaninglessness, making after-images statistically rarer. 3 months in, DOE issued a quiet memo. The lead safe in Nevada registered no further thermal activity. Scientists X-rayed the stack of blank Polaroids. Chemical layers inert, silver halide crystallized beyond developability. In a final test, they flashed 100,000 lux xenon across a sheet. It remained white. The myth's negative had expired, just as the handwriting promised. On the anniversary of the Avery disappearance, Lena and Cole hiked to the ridge at White Pine where everything began. Snow lay smooth, but frost had etched faint camera shutter patterns, nature remembering. They placed a fresh 600 film pack on the birch stump, marked expired, and poured fixer over it, sealing legend and landscape in one act. No flash answered, only wind through naked spruce. Cole snapped a digital photo of the stump. Pixels stayed pixels. Stories die when the world stops listening, Lena said. Cole shook his head. Or when they're told so loudly they can't whisper anymore. They walked out, footprints filling with lazy snowfall, leaving behind only the hush of an archivist and a photographer who'd turned a haunting into a footnote, noise folded into the infinite scroll. And that, Den Story's crew, is how a single Polaroid tried to print history on our souls, and how flooding the internet with infinite copies finally drained its chemistry dry. The lesson? Sometimes the only way to silence a ghost is to let everyone hear it at once. If this story kept you guessing, smash like and subscribe so you never miss the next mystery. Drop a comment below. Would you snap the shutter or snap the camera in half? I'll pin the boldest answer in tomorrow's upload. We're back every night at 1 with a brand new tale that blurs the line between evidence and nightmare. Until then, keep your film in the freezer, keep your eyes off unattended cameras, and remember, some legends fade, some overexpose. It all depends on who's holding the lens. Sleep easy if you can.